Maria.
Hi, Jenny. Cheers. What do you have?
I have spiced chai cranberry from our new fireside pack.
White tea and cacao. This one is so freaking, I mean, they're all good, but this one is like, it's like an adult hot chocolate.
I take personal responsibility for it.
Phenomenal. Well, this is our we can call it our Halloween episode. This month we read Spells for Forgetting.
I have it on my Kindle.
I loved this book.
It was so good.
Such a fun read.
Adrienne. It was
I couldn't put it down, and it just kept the layers and entanglement kept
I
going.
flew through it. Well, the backstory is that I was supposed to be given the book, Finally, a couple of days ago, I was just whatever, and I think I read it in 2 days.
Yeah. It's it's not a short book, but luckily, it's really hard. It's really hard to put down.
It was great. It's so well written. The story is so good. I also didn't realize it would be like a mystery.
Yeah, it's like a murder mystery with magic.
Murder mystery with magic. Okay, this is so good. So okay, what we thought would be really fun today is actually because our Boozy Book Club is part of our Wise Women Collective, and wise women historically, I mean, I guess some wise women have been called witches, right? But wise women are usually connected to plants, to the earth. Like, we blend tea. That's what we do, is we use herbs and plants and spices and stuff from the earth to put things that have health benefits and make a little magic and really good ingredients into people's bodies. That's literally what we do. So this book spoke to me. And
yeah, I mean, lots of potions, blending some tea leaf reading.
This is the one that you made. I have the spell for you. It holds up the white tea cacao.
Yes.
You know what the spell is when we made that?
What?
Yes, that's the spell for happiness. No, it's so good. It makes you happy.
It really is so good. This one, it tastes like the serendipity. Like, if anyone has ever been to Serendipity and had frozen hot chocolate, this is like the adult version of that.
No, and this one that I'm drinking, which has ginger, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon in it, which is very much for this season. Traditionally, these spices are used during this season for protection, for your health. But
wait, we did a blog. Do you remember our blog about this? About spells?
I remember my blog also about mulling spices, but
sorry,
about spells.
I'm still on spells. I'm not ready for Halloween yet.
For pre-Halloween here. So let's look. I'm going to pull up the blog about spells, and why don't we say I have it. I don't know.
Yeah, I found it too. On the video, I remember, because this is very much in line with Spells for Forgetting. That we called it Earth that will pull us out
the this island, and there are these women that have magic that have been connected to the island.
The island has magic too, and
the island has magic. And it's this earth plant magic, and plants do have magic. I mean, they are healing. I mean, it's whatever. So anyway, there's a tradition though of using herbs and spells, obviously in many cultures, but particularly around this
around health. Yeah, well, because I think we all forget, but Halloween was the moment, but I think between 31st and the 1st is when the lines between the living and the dead are crossed, or the barriers are broken down, right? And so people used to do a lot of spells or hang things or certain herbs to protect themselves.
Yeah, that's right. And I have this list here. It was called Samhain, celebrated by the Celts in 2000 BC. Okay, I'm going to read some of what we figured out. So Artemisia or mugwort used to be hung in the doorways and from the rafters to protect inhabitants from devils and witches. And it also said that it was used by travelers to protect against evil spirits. So I don't have a lot of mugwort, even though, mugwort grows near my house, because I have this app that's a plant identification app, and I have mugwort. So I can just hang some.
You're covered.
It's also in here where your family lives.
Here's one that's a little more accessible than mugwort. Garlic. It's used as a protection against evil spirits, most famously vampires.
Yep, garlic under your pillow or around your neck. Okay.
It's a tough
Also, by the way, like garlic, if you eat it, I like
Yeah.
pickled. Have you ever pickled garlic?
Yeah, I love pickled garlic, but you know, that's a strong odor. That's not, you're not just like one day protecting against vampires.
Okay, next I have sage, which also, by the way, everyone has like sage in their kitchen. A key ingredient in healing amulets and long associated with wisdom, purification, and protection. And by the way, like, has anyone ever like smudged sage in their house? Like that's
Yeah,
very
don't you like sage your room to get rid of evil
sage.
spirits? Yeah. Yeah.
I like
You
I've
smudge
seen
it?
it's called smudging.
Oh,
It's called smudging.
Oh.
It's not called saging.
Sorry. I'm not up on my saging. Smudging, I guess.
I think it's called smudging. We can double check.
I have heard of that. Okay, what's another? Oh, this is interesting. Okay, mistletoe, which
Christmas.
Yeah, and like kissing, but it's actually
When you hang it on your doorway, the mistletoe at Christmas, don't you? Don't people hang it outside?
Yeah, but they like kiss under it. It's like kiss me under the mistletoe. Yeah, but it's actually, well, mistletoe is guaranteed protection against witches. When placed in a baby's cradle, it would protect them from being stolen by fairies.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I don't know about the kissing, but that's maybe why historically, if we were to do a Christmas episode, about the mistletoe outside the door. Okay, next, what I have here is rosemary. Now it's interesting because in the book, Spells for Forgetting, they hang rosemary in front of the door, and they they use rosemary a lot. By the way, rosemary is also a powerful preservative, and it's on Whole Foods list of accepted preservative. Instead,
oh really? Like
yeah.
to preserve? Oh,
yeah, it's a good. So used for blessings and purification, as well as a charm against witchcraft, it is said that burning rosemary while meditating helps one remember past lives. So purification, protection, and protects your food.
Great.
It really is like you can preserve food.
Okay, chamomile, which we can all brew a cup of chamomile tea, is said to sprinkling around the home to prevent magical attacks. It's also considered a lucky flower.
Good, I like chamomile. I use it for like if my kids are sick or something. Okay, we have a couple more on this blog. Should we do them, or should we force people who are in totally?
I think we you guys get the idea. Yeah. Everyone apparently needs to grab some herbs for Halloween.
Magical herbs, spells for forgetting, and obviously like just a book after our own.
Yes, it's such a great read. It's so fun. You won't be able to put it down. It's perfect for fall with a boozy tea.
So grab your.
You can drink your herbs. Drink some herbs while you read about them.
Also, hang your herbs.
Drink your herbs.
And
then dive in. That's what we do. All right. Well, we'll flip over to our interview with Adrienne Young. She is an awesome author. This is her first adult fiction, right? She was a YA.
I just bought her YA book.
Writer. Oh yeah, you'll have to tell her. But we're gonna flip over to her. She's a New York Times bestselling author, and find out a little bit of the background behind this book and how these all amazing stories came to be.
Sounds good. Adrienne, welcome to the Boozy Book Club, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we're so excited to cheers to you and chat all things spells for forgetting. As we were saying, Oh, Jenny, you had a holiday flavor too.
We're doing our holiday flavors. Cozy. It's a great, honestly, like reading this book with kind of a holiday flavor, cozy under a blanket was.
And like October just seems like the perfect.
Perfect
Perfect month.
Well, it's amazing. And we were so excited to interview you this month. I'm hoping that we'll be able to release this right around Halloween because like it's the perfect October seasonal witchy read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So without
I was going to tell you really quick, we were actually originally, they were going to release it in the summer. And I was like, you can't release it in the summer. This has to go out in the fall. And they had to like get some people on board to be able to do it in the fall. And I'm so glad that we were able to release in the fall because that's the number one thing I'm hearing from readers is like, this is like such seasonal read, like feel like all the fall vibes, that it makes it really fun.
And what's funny, what's interesting about that, right, is it, I feel like usually seasonal reads are summer, right? Usually summer reads, beach reads. It's very unusual. I mean, I guess you can make an argument like that thrillers and stuff like that are fun in the winter, but honestly, this with the scene that you painted on Sayworth, is that how, am I saying it?
How do you say it? Sayworth?
It's Saoirse.
Saoirse. Oh, thank you. Okay. Well, we said it wrong.
We were nowhere near.
Mine. Saoirse, but just, kind of apple picking season, the end of the summer, the fall. And I mean, I've been apple picking with my own kids. So it's really this whole like vibe of autumn and to continue into the winter.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So without like any spoilers, what kind of made you choose this plot? Do you want to like describe kind of the story in your own words and like how we all got to this magical island?
Yes. I'm like notorious for accidentally spoiling stuff when I'm rambling on. So if I do, you can bleep me out. But I originally got the idea for this book. I usually get ideas in like pictures in my head, like a very detailed, visceral picture that inspires me. And then the story development is going on this kind of adventure of figuring out, the who, what, when, where, why of the picture. And for this book, it was a picture of August Saltz, the main character, one of the main characters, on a ferry coming home to his like rural island hometown for the first time in a long time to bury his mother's ashes. And so the story follows August. He hasn't been home in 14 years. And him and his mother were kind of forced to leave when he was 18 years old. And the town believed that he was responsible for the death of a 17-year-old girl who also was a good friend of his. And he was never charged with the murder, but he was basically run out of town. And now he's back to fulfill his mother's wishes. And he, in turn, will also have to kind of face that past. And also face Emery Blackwood, who was the love of his life that he had to leave behind.
You did that so well, and it really sets the scene. So you see it kind of as a image in your head, which, by the way, is kind of the way we work too. Like when I work with tea and tea blends, I kind of have this like end goal, and then I work my way into it using ingredients. And Maria and I are both super visual with our product creation. So you kind of had this like image in your head of August heading home on the ferry. But the story is so intricate. Like did you, I don't know, did you kind of did it just like write itself kind of naturally, or did you plot it out? Did you map it out?
Did you map it out? Because there's so many like amazing twists and things I did not see coming. Like how did that all happen?
I am not an outliner at all. Like there are writers who are like discovery writers like me, who we kind of like to go in there and discover the story as we're writing. And then there are people who have like binders this thick with color coded tabs of like every scene and who's in the scene and what's going to happen exactly. I am definitely the former, and that keeps writing really exciting for me. And so I feel like I was discovering a lot of these story threads because it is layered, and it's not just, different timelines, but there's different POVs throughout the book, and, chapters from different people's perspectives. And they all have backstories, and they're multi-generational. And so we're also even kind of alluding to and discovering things that happened 30 years ago that kind of built upon the current mystery. And I love stories like that. I love to read stories like that and watch stories like that. But this was my first real foray into it as a writer. And so it was definitely a learning experience. It was very challenging in a very like invigorating way. But it also meant I did really take my time with the development of it, because it wasn't something that I could just, like pants my way through. I had to like really stop and think about things. And one thing that really helped me, and is probably one of the most structural things I've ever done while writing, is I had a very detailed timeline that I had to establish for each layer of the mystery, in order to be able to like drip clues throughout the book and people be able to track and follow it and for them not to contradict each other. So the night in question for Spells for Forgetting, the main mystery is this one night 14 years ago when this girl is killed. And it's also the same night that the apple orchard in town almost burned down. So I had this very detailed schedule of like, where is everyone at 8 a.m. that morning? Where is everyone at 1 p.m. that day? And, 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. And that was really the only way I was able to kind of track while I was writing and revising the book. Yeah.
Very like detective work.
Yeah.
The other way around. Yeah. That's so wait, did you know, like, at what point did you know how those things were going to tie together? Like who was going to, or how the apple orchard burnt down and about Lily?
Probably about midway through the book. I feel I'm a big believer in what I call story magic. Like, I really do
I love that.
Yeah, I totally believe in this like element, this almost like esoteric element of storytelling where your subconscious is like working on these problems, these like plot problems, and you're taking steps towards them without really realizing it. And then the best moments of writing a book are those like aha moments where like two things connect that you had no idea were going to connect, or like this over here that you are working on is actually the answer to this big problem that you have in the story. So those are like the most fun parts to me. And I feel like they kind of come to me gradually throughout the book, but the mystery of that night of like, in regards to the apple orchard and everything, I feel like I didn't really know totally what happened until about right before the main character finds out. And of course I had to go back through and in my revisions and like weave it in and all of that. But when I was drafting it, I was very much like,
wait, that's it. Yeah.
I like your description of it. It's kind of discovery writing. Okay, I think we could stay on your process for a long time because we both love the book, but I have other questions that we want to ask you, so I'm going to keep moving. So one thing that struck us, obviously we're a tea company, and first of all, like I blend tea, but tea leaves and tea leaf reading plays an important role in your book, and I was just so curious about the magic of it. Like, have you had your tea leaves read? Did you have to go somewhere to learn about it, or did you kind of just like wing it? Like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I love the idea that Anne-Marie's family has this kind of tea and botanical history.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of really came from my interest in herbalism. I'm very intrigued by herbalism. I've read a lot of books about it. I've done a lot of just personal research on it, and plant magic and folk magic and healing arts, old healing arts and things like that. I feel like I have a natural interest in those things, and this setting and this town felt like such a perfect like place and opportunity to kind of really explore it in story form. So I was pulling on a lot of just like, even like on my bookshelf, like the bottom shelf is like nonfiction. I have like several books on herbalism down there that it's something I'm naturally interested in. I have
see that when I read. What?
Huh?
Oh, so when I read, I could kind of feel.
Yeah. That. Yeah. And I have had my tea leaves read. And it's a really cool like idea, and I'm just intrigued by all of it. I feel like it gets my imagination going. But I knew also that I really wanted the magic in this book to be very tied to like the earth, and tea is such a great, way, even historically and culturally, to kind of incorporate that.
I love that. And I also love just, this Boozy. I like the idea of kind of the magical women in your book, and sort of this kind of line of magic and power going through the women. Actually, in terms of crafting the female relationships, there are male relationships, but I don't know, how did you kind of think through the multi-generational female relationships and the ties that bind? I'm thinking kind of Leota and Lily and Emery.
Yeah.
very complex.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I feel like it's very much rooted in my interest in like writing gray characters, very morally gray characters. I mean, I feel like that's present in all of my books and probably will always be. And that's because I relate to them more. You know, I think a lot of us don't want to like acknowledge or believe that we have this like shadow side.
Yeah. I like morally gray.
Yeah. And so it's like, you know, not all of us, like if somebody could listen in to our thoughts, like we would be appalled at some of the things we think and feel and, you know, consider. And so I find that readers connect so much more with characters who don't hide their dark side from the actual reader. And when you're dealing with characters who are morally gray, you also have to establish some kind of compassion for them, like even the villains or the, you know, the bad guys in the story. There has to be some kind of groundwork laid where you do kind of connect or understand what their motives are, and you know, all of that. And I feel like that's really what lends itself to great complicated relationship dynamics, whether it's like family, friendship, mentor type relationships, and enemies too, because if you can get clear on like the motivation and make the reader empathize with it, like with, you know, I don't want to spoil anything, but like with some of the more villainous characters in the book, then you can kind of understand where they're coming from and you understand why they're doing what they're doing, even though you might not agree with it. So I think this town in particular, because it's so closed off from the rest of the world, there's a lot of like parental figures in these people's lives, like people who are not blood related. And that also makes things really interesting.
Yeah, no, it was totally, there's a complexity to the relationships, and also it's
all the relationships, and they're such like long-standing relationships.
But I also, you kind of also start off thinking, you know, when you're talking about magic and plant magic, there's an expectation that anyone related to that might be like kind of good, and that's not necessarily what happens. So anyway, I was really fascinated by sort of the way that you were able to tease out the complex female and male characters.
Yeah, and at every point, even like the villains, you do have compassion for them, or you even like them in some of the part. You know, you're like, oh, okay, like, and then you're like, whoa, wait.
Yeah, the motivation. Everyone has an agenda. I feel like you
yes, everyone has an agenda.
As you read the book, that everyone not everyone shares the same motivations.
Was the town based on a place, because it's a fictional location, right?
Yeah, it's a fictional town. I mean, it is very much inspired by the San Juan Islands. That's those, you know, off the coast of Seattle or Washington. And I didn't want to place it in an actual real town and have to be constrained by all of the historical accuracies and all of that. And so, so it's
like a real town to me.
And I went there, I did research, and all of that to like kind of get a more immersed experience as a writer. That is one of my favorite parts of the United States. I really, really love the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, beautiful.
As do I. Actually made me want to go there.
Beautiful up there. Yeah,
San Juan Islands, and Seattle and Portland. Okay, so I had a question for you, and I know we were chatting about this a little bit before we started recording, but this is your first foray into adult fiction, right?
Yes.
And I just bought your first book in your Fable series because I loved this book so much. But was there a difference in writing or process, or was there any different way you set yourself up in terms of approaching this as you were thinking about an adult book?
Absolutely. It was a very different experience to me. I think, you know, I've definitely heard writers out there who say like, there's no difference between writing YA and adult. It's the same. It's just the age of the protagonist. It's different. I really disagree with that. Because I mean, at least with my books, because I feel like the themes you're dealing with are completely different than you're dealing with in young adult. I mean, in young adult, you're talking about identity and finding your place in the world and all the firsts of life, you know, like your first love, your first heartbreak, your first everything big, you know, venture out into the world. And with adult, you know, you're dealing with, I don't want to say deeper as in more valid themes, but just way more complex themes and that just come with life experience and perspective. And so I feel like digging into that stuff really required not only, you know, more page time for the characters, but more characters to bring context to those things. And so it was really tough untangling the story and figuring out how to tell it in a linear way that wasn't going to confuse the reader. Like these were all new writing muscles for me that I had to strengthen a lot, because in my young adult books, it's a different kind of story. So I found it to be just something, I came out the other side feeling like a stronger writer. I still am very proud of the book. It's something I was intimidated by in the beginning. I feel the same way about my next adult novel that I'm working on. So I feel like it was very different in a lot of ways. Not as like better or worse or anything, just very different.
I mean, that makes sense. I feel like, I mean, I loved this book, which I've said a few times, but I felt like your sensitivity towards the younger versions of them, I don't know. I was like, maybe one of the reasons why that was done so well is because you also have you know, are a YA writer, but yeah, I mean, so you accomplished what you set out to accomplish, because it was just really, really well done. And it sounds like you did a ton of revising and tweaking, going back to sort of fine tune the mystery, and worked so well.
Yeah. And I have an amazing editor too, who is just so uniquely suited for these types of projects, because there aren't, I mean, we had a hard time even just comping this book, you know, it doesn't really fit into very cleanly into one genre. And we definitely had to it was very much like a team effort, and I relied on her expertise a lot too. And so I feel like I really lucked out with the editor, but one of the reasons why too is because in the beginning, I really felt like I needed these flashbacks, but when I sold the book on proposal, I did not include them. I cut them out because I was worried as a young adult author that people would feel like I didn't want anyone to feel like I was just writing a young adult book, or like a young adult book within an adult book, you know? Mm-hmm. And then when I actually got into the creative side with my editor, she's like, you know, I really feel like we need flashbacks of when they're teenagers. And I was like, oh, I took them out, you know, like I actually have them over here. File. Yeah, I have them over here in this file.
Yeah, they're here. Yeah.
Yeah. So that to me was like one of those big glaring signs of like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect editor for this book. And yeah, I'm really glad we kept them.
No, but they were so important. Like even to understand the characters and like how, especially with August and Emery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I so rounded it out. Maria, I think
we have two more quick questions.
Two more questions. Okay.
This one would be quick. We were just curious, like, did you know that this was the title all along, or did it evolve, or how did Forgetting come?
It was quite a journey. Because a harrowing journey. I mean, I don't even know how many titles we passed back and forth. My original working title for the book was Salt. And every time I have a book, I'm working on a book, I have like a nickname for it. I knew that Salt wasn't going to be the title because it's just not very commercial. And also there's a pretty popular book of poetry called Salt. And, you know, so I always knew that wasn't going to be the title. But when we got to that point in the process, it was like, I mean, dozens and dozens of emails back and forth trying to find the perfect title. But when we finally found it, I mean, I was very like, this is it. This is the one. So it took some doing, but we got there eventually. And I really love the title.
Oh yeah, I love it. And it just perfectly fits the book and the storyline. I loved it. Okay, last question for you. If your book were to become a series or a film, who would play the main characters?
Oh my gosh.
Maria's favorite question. Oh,
I love to know.
This is her.
Well, I'm also curious because I also like have such a visual of like what I think who the characters are. So I'm always curious. Like,
yeah,
you think?
Well, I have one in my head for Emery. I don't have one for August because people ask me this sometimes and I'm not very good at the fan casting thing, but I have always thought that Lily James would be a perfect Emery.
I can totally see that.
Yeah, like very emotional and tender, but still has like a little fiery spark.
Yeah.
I could totally visualize her. And then August, I don't know. Do you have an August one?
It's such a tough question. Maria is like, so when we play, it's like I would say we play this game sometimes, except we don't, because I'm always like, what? And she has like ideas.
I know. I need to think
who's
about
your
August. I need to think about it. I feel like he's like kind of good looking. Like who just played Elvis? What's his name?
Oh, I don't know his name, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
He was Vanessa Hudgens' ex-boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
He just played Elvis in a big movie.
Yes, I know his face. I know exactly who you're talking about, but I have no idea what his name is.
Yeah, me either. That's like the first person that comes to mind for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But
sorry, I should have to mute my daughter.
Are you Googling him?
No. I had to mute because my daughter walked in from school. We'll have to edit this one part out.
And I feel like Albertine too. I don't know. I feel like she
up on, so that, I don't know. Anyway, the book was incredibly visual, and I don't know who the cast would be.
Lily James.
I do like Lily James, and she just played Pamela Anderson, right, in that Pam and Tommy TV show.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't
know.
Wow.
And she completely transformed in it, and it was really cool.
Wow.
So she can transform.
Austin Butler is his name.
I mean, your book was just so great and so magical, and we really appreciate the chance to get to chat with you about it. Thank you for coming on our Boozy Book Club. I'm just hold up my Kindle one more time and read the book.
Cheers.
And congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. We really loved it, and
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Such a good read. Thanks, Adrienne. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.